All right, now let's look at the brain a little closer. Let's understand how we can keep its attention. If you have a computer, let's say a desktop computer, let me ask you a question. What happens when you don't touch the computer for, let's say, 5 or 10 minutes? It goes into the hibernation mode. Why does it do that? Well, it's trying to conserve energy, especially if you have a laptop, right, that it's not plugged in. They'll go into hibernation mode just to conserve energy. And the way to wake the computer up is to what? Wiggle the mouse, or if you have a pad, is to wiggle the pad, right? The brain is no different. See, the brain, when it senses something that's boring, not of interest, it'll try to go into a low power state and conserve energy. This is why when you're doing a presentation, or if you've been to a presentation where the speaker is talking, and the next thing you know, you see people fiddling around with their iPhones or their phones, checking their email. It's because the brain has said, literally, this is boring. I don't want to listen to this. Let's reallocate our resources to something else. Let's just pretend we're listening and then check our emails on the side. That's the brain saying, this is not of interest to me. Let me go into low power state or redirect my energy into doing something else, like checking email while the speaker is speaking. So why is this important to us? Because we as sales presenters, when we're talking to a customer, what we have to do is make sure that we're not boring. In other words, we have to make sure that the customer is always with us. Now, let me ask you a question. Is it always, here's a graph I have, and let's say that you have to do a 45-minute presentation to a customer. Is it possible to maintain the customer's attention here at 100% during those 45 minutes? Yes or no? The answer is no. That's hard to do. Not even the best of the best can do that. Now, we know that the customer is going to have a hard time staying in there at 100%. So let's say that somewhere down here, let's say some arbitrary point, the customer's energy is going to dip. Their attention span is going to dip, let's say, right there. Now, if we let it continue to dip all the way down, we're just going to lose them. They're not going to pay attention to what we're saying. So what do we have to do? Somewhere here, let's say this arbitrary line right here, we have to learn how to kick that back up. In other words, regain their attention. And then, as we're talking more, again, what will happen is the customer's attention will start to wane a little bit, and then what are we going to do again? We're going to kick it right back up. We're going to do this throughout the presentation. So this is what an ideal presentation looks like. It starts out with the customer paying 100% attention to what we're saying, but then their mind is going to what? Their attention span is going to dip, but that's when we as great salespeople, sales presenters, are going to kick it back up and then keep it up at 100% for a while, but we know it's going to dip again, and what we're going to do is kick it up. Now, these little kick-ups are called either hooks. In other words, you insert something, you show them something. For example, if I ask you a question, that's a hook. They're also called pattern interrupts. A pattern interrupt is something that just disrupts the pattern. When you disrupt the pattern, you're basically wiggling the mouse, wiggling the brain, and waking the customer up. Another phrase I've heard is emotionally competent stimuli. Yeah, that actually exists. An emotionally competent stimuli is basically a pattern interrupt or a hook, something you throw in to kind of change it up a little bit. These are just change up. I like that phrase. Change it up a little bit. Do something different. So you're presenting, then all of a sudden, let's show a video. The video becomes a change up. It becomes a pattern interrupt, a hook, an emotionally competent stimuli, something that changes that the customer wakes up. Then again, I start talking again, for example, and then 5 to 10 minutes later, let's do a how-to example. And then I show the customer an example. Notice I stopped talking, I switched into the mode of doing an example, and basically that's a pattern interrupt. I've interrupted the pattern, which means I've kicked the customer's attention back up. I do some more talking, 5 to 10 minutes later, I say something like this. Now let me stop right here and ask you a question, Mr. Customer. What did I just do? I changed it up. It's a hook. It's a pattern interrupt. I just basically changed how I was presenting, and the customer kind of wakes up. This is called wiggling the mouse or wiggling the brain. This is what we have to do during our presentation. Now I'm going to show you how you can format an effective sales presentation when you're talking using these pattern interrupts or hooks. Again, the brain is always looking to go into low power state. When you're talking to a customer, it's not easy to maintain them at 100% because we can't keep them at 100%. What we have to do is during our presentation process, we have to find ways to interrupt the pattern, insert hooks to kind of bring them back up, pull them back in to the actual story. Get the idea? Now I'm going to show you different strategies and tactics, tools that you can use to interrupt the pattern, wiggle the mouse. So keep that in mind. When you're talking to a customer, every 5 to 10 minutes, what you want to do is wiggle the mouse to keep them engaged. Let's go to the next video and let's look at some of these tools that we can use. Here we go.